Moses on a UFO, Jesus as a goblin, and an ear with its own gravesite. You didn't hear about these historical events in the Bible. The world is full of accounts from the life of Jesus Christ, from the 4 canonical Gospels of the New Testament to a host of texts from late antiquity and the medieval period. Among these numerous takes, there are certain details that generally tend to remain constant, like the idea that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, or that his ministry was in Judea, or that he was crucified. There is one set of documents, however, that suggests these texts got the life of Jesus and everything about the entire history of the universe all wrong. The Take no Uchi manuscripts are a set of documents whose adherents claim were translated 1,500 years ago in a mixture of modern Japanese and Chinese characters. They're said to have been created by a man named Take no Uchino Matori, who, as legend has it, transliterated a set of even older texts that were written by the gods and divine characters. The text of the manuscripts themselves claims to tell the secret history of humankind, from creation until the beginning of the Christian era. But what's the real story? Although the life of Jesus as related in the Take no Uchi manuscripts may be of interest to English speakers, there's a lot more to these texts. The cosmic history laid out in the document says that the world was originally nothing but a great expanse of mud, coalescing slowly over the course of 22 billion years. Eventually, the gods and goddesses emerged. They separated the earth from the sky and formed the sun and the moon. Pretty standard creation story stuff as far as all that goes. Over the course of multiple generations, the gods evolved and created things like writing and agriculture. Billions of years later, they dispersed across the various nations and created humans, which were divided into 5 colors: white, red, blue, yellow, and black. In this history, Japan was made the center of the universe. The world was ultimately united under a single government by the god emperor Sumera Mikoto, who divided the globe into 16 districts, like the petals of a chrysanthemum flower. Along the way, Sumera Mikoto, who would tour the land in a flying ship, built the pyramids in Egypt as a way to communicate with the gods. Eventually, humans began to disobey the gods, who retaliated by sinking 2 continents in the Pacific Ocean. The documents claim that many such catastrophes have occurred across history due to the arrogance of humankind. The Take no Uchi documents also tell a history of the masters born from each of the colors of humankind, which the manuscripts name as Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Shakyamuni, Buddha, Confucius, and Lao Tzu. The life story of Jesus told within these documents differs pretty substantially from what you might have learned in Sunday school. While the New Testament says that Jesus grew up in Nazareth and began his ministry at about the age of 30, the Take no Uchi documents say he left Judea for Japan at the age of 21, where he studied for 12 years before returning to Judea at age 33 to begin his ministry. Much like in the Bible, Jesus received resistance from the people for his teachings and found himself in trouble with the Roman authorities. Unlike Bible Jesus, however, Take no Uchi Jesus had a brother, Isukiri, who volunteered to pose as Jesus and take his place on the cross. In this version, it was actually Jesus' brother who was crucified, while the real Jesus returned to Japan. From there, he married, had 3 daughters, and lived as a simple rice farmer until the age of 106. During this period, Jesus spent his time in Shingo, helping those in need. Over the years, he developed a balding head with gray hair and an appearance that compelled the local villagers to compare him to a goblin.
Really?
For some time now, the village of Shingo has advertised itself as the true final resting place of Jesus Christ. The Japanese tomb of Jesus is a burial mound on top of a hill that's decorated with a cross and a small fence. Nearby is another smaller mound, which is said to hold a lock of hair from the Virgin Mary and one of the ears of Isukiri. Much of this is explained in the nearby Jesus Museum that contains replicas of the Take no Uchi documents themselves. In addition to the manuscripts and the burial mounds, some residents of Shingo say that they are descended from Jesus himself as proof of his residence. They also underline that the people of Shingo have different dialects and eye colors from surrounding villages, citing this as proof of Christian blood. Jesus isn't the only figure in the Take no Uchi manuscripts. The documents also say that following the revelation of the 10 Commandments to the Israelites at Mount Sinai, Moses boarded a spaceship and flew to Japan. Once he arrived there, he delivered a set of 10 additional commandments, many of which appear to contradict the earlier ones.
13th commandment, this is a great one. 13th commandment says, when you use Q-tips, just go around the outside of the ears.
These new commandments included worshiping the Japanese gods, worshiping the emperor, protecting the laws of the 5 races, and worshiping the spirit kami. This is a lot of worshiping entities that are not the God who brought the Israelites out of Egypt. Smithsonian Magazine observes that this version of Moses had received the original commandments, as well as the Hebrew language and the Star of David, from the God Emperor of Japan. Moses lived to the ripe old age of 583, nearly 6 times the lifespan of Jesus. He was buried in Japan's Ishikawa Prefecture, with the burial mounds of his family located nearby. The Take no Uchi manuscripts are obviously extremely interesting as an alien-filled secret history of the world, but the question of how reliable or authentic they are depends on who you ask. As Ancient Origins explains, the official claim of the Foundation behind the documents is that they are authentic and were subsequently preserved by the descendants of the Take no Uchi family over generations. According to Slate, the official narrative goes on to say that the documents were eventually discovered in the 1930s by a group of Japanese archaeologists, only to be destroyed during World War II. Fortunately, replicas like the ones in the museum in Shingo were created first. Atlas Obscura explains, however, that it is extremely likely that the documents were a hoax created by a man named Wado Kosaka, a self-described cosmo-archaeologist who was born in 1947. Wado also gained a certain amount of notoriety by trying to make contact with a UFO on live television. He died in 2002 at the age of 54, after which control of the Association for the Study of the Take no Uchi documents was passed on to his wife, Michio Miwa.